So like I said, I think we are going to take a totally different approach here. So we are not going to be tallying what came out in the poll versus what we discussed, right? So because each one of us here come with so many years of experience, right? And each one of us come from different organizations, different cultures, different policies, different sizes, right? So given that, I don't think we can come to one consensus and say, okay, all of us agree on one point. So I'll take this probably individually and speak out to different panelists here. The key word, at least in the occupiers section of the questionnaire that you had, do you see some key words there? And which is the most prominent one standing out? Anybody from the audience or, absolutely. Who said that? Great. Okay, that's Manish. So carbon emissions, if you see the occupier side, most of it is focused on carbon emissions. And every question that we look out there for leads somewhere back to carbon emissions, right? So we're going to be talking about retrofit. We're going to be talking about transportation. And I see in the audience some large companies. Stix Kumara is there, and probably we can expect to get some responses from you as well as we speak. And really talking about retrofits and carbon emissions. How, Sanjeev, I look to you to answer this question. You have done some recent office spaces and large ones in that sense. How do these two interplay? And really going by the responses, the majority of the people have said 30% or more. So how do you look at this, Sanjeev?
So Kumar, really don't know, to be very honest, because we never measured it, right? So, so to give a number is impossible without having measured it. So I think that's the bottom line in terms of we didn't measure it. So I really don't know what it was from a carbon perspective. The second point was you're trying into the employee transportation, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
transportation.
that's the next question that we had. I mean, in the poll.
So from a project, I mean, we did large project, but we never mapped it. It was not in our. While we built, designed an office from a sustainability perspective, we designed it from being a very inclusive office, but we never looked at it from a carbon perspective, right? Carbon sense for measuring. Like for example, one of our things was it has to be extremely energy efficient. So for example, when we went out to the market, we told an RFP looking for real estate, we said we want to use VRV than a normal chiller because VRV in a normal chiller you would switch on a 500-ton chiller if there are 10 people in the morning, right? And you run that the whole day. Whereas we went and got VRVs done, which means that if at 6 a.m. I've got 10 people, I'm only switching on a 10 or a 15-ton machine and not the whole building. Right?
So what you're saying, Sanjeev, is basically you're saying as a natural thought process, you were going towards carbon emissions, but you never measured them.
We never measured it.
But the approach was there.
The
to
approach
go
was
green,
there
carbon
from a
emissions,
building
those kind
design
of, correct.
perspective, right?
Right.
Now, from an operating perspective, we do measure how much diesel we run, right? Whether it's from the transportation perspective or from the generators. Today, power is stable, so no. Yeah, but we do measure that from an office perspective, but not from a design and
Not from a design or from the office building,
Yeah.
project perspective.
perspective. No, but we do measure from a daily operating perspective.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that, Sanjeev. Anybody else want? Dhanmoni, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I believe all I will go with the Sanjeev itself. It is the almost same logic. So while designing the building, we also didn't bother to go with measuring, but for sure we were trying to do build greenery, build the system in such a way that which is more sustainable, more healthier, and cost effective also. So keeping everything in mind, the design took place, and while in day-to-day operation, yes, it is one of our key job to maintain or to run the office at the most optimal cost. So while doing so, in my company we provide employee transport service. So we try to optimize it as much as possible. Same goes to any kind of energy. It can be raw energy, raw power energy. It can be DG energy, or it can be solar energy, or see there are say as of today Karnataka government is giving various kinds of schemes. They have rolled out various kind of schemes which are favorable to builders, which are favorable to occupiers, and to the people who are developing green energy. So we are tapping those opportunities, and see the road path is not very clear, but the government is working, and along with the government, we as a occupier, we are also looking for those advantages, those leverages, and as a group, we are looking for a solve. And there are multiple ways of say going with sustainability is say the biggest problem in sustainability is the cost factor. So the cost part and the sustainability, say one should be thinking beyond the lifestyle, beyond the kind of one single, say as Shashi was mentioning, say if you think about one single life, I am not going to face the problem. You want to go ahead?
Please go ahead.
So if you think beyond the say small span of time, and if you think more about say maybe what will happen to after 10 years, after 15 years, then you will think about sustainability. Few things you should do from that angle, and few things you should do it from as on today's angle.
Sure, Dhanmoni. Thank you for sharing those insights. And you also built an office recently,
Yes,
in the
yes.
last 1 year or so.
Yeah, during COVID time.
Right, right, right. So coming to that and speaking about smart controls and energy consumption, I think all that again directs back to emissions. But I want to jump into the actual, topic that we have today, and base some questions on those. Especially talking about remote work. Obviously we know with COVID, a lot of companies went into remote working and then probably slowly came back to hybrid, and then. What is the trend that you're seeing today? I know since you have the mic already, you can start, and then we'll go to Sanjeev back, and then come to the designer perspective. What do you think is a current trend, and where do you see this going into the future? Maybe next 2, 3, 5 years.
In fact, first of all, thanks to the technology, right? So, technology, in fact, played a very crucial role during the COVID time. It kind of enabled all of us to work from home, right? And maybe before COVID, work from home was a privilege to certain section of employees. It was not common to all. We in fact, in my profile, I have never done work from home before COVID, but during COVID time, the first few days, so yes, in fact, I was out on day one, and maybe after say a couple of months, maybe 6 7 months, when kind of things were kind of streamlined, then I was probably working in between. Yeah, coming back to the point, so basically work from home. So as of say maybe I will say when the COVID was kind of subsidizing, or when the government was making it, we were coming back to normalcy, right? Then there were a lot of companies who opted for work from home completely. Some companies opted for say partial hybrid kind of work style. Some companies are kind of asking everyone to come back. So there are, say for example, if I take it all depends upon the nature of the company or nature of the platform in which you are working. But if you take from the overall perspective, say for example, if I go back, if I take the example of US, in Bay Area, there are hardly few percentage of people who are coming back to office. If you go to Europe, people don't want to come back to office. People are willing, say in fact, people are saying again it is similar to US itself, maybe 15 20%. In India, we are seeing in day-to-day paper also, in fact, if you take out any say maybe past 1 or 6 months paper, you will find that many corporates pushing people or asking employees to come back to office, but practically it is not 100% fulfilled.
I completely agree with you. Getting people back is not an easy task,
It
right?
is not
Because
an easy
people have
task.
seen working from home, what
Yes.
benefits, or they get some personal time while they're doing their official work, and a lot of other challenges.
Lot of
They have
yes.
built an ecosystem there where they feel comfortable, right?
Yes.
But I have a slightly different view on this, Dhanmoni. If you really look at, like I said, what do we foresee coming in the next 3 years to 5 years? I feel things are going to come back to normal, because if you see, we started with completely work from home. Then we said hybrid, 1 or 2 days in a week. Now, a lot of companies are thinking about increasing that 1 or 2 days to maybe 3 days. And going forward, I think in a couple of years, it's going to come back to a normal 5-day week. That is my take. I always look at a long-term vision, and that is my prediction at this point. Maybe Sanjeev has a different view. I would like to hear that.
About I think 2 weeks back, so our organization works very closely with ISB. There's a professor Chandra whom we consult, and he advises our leadership on what we should be doing with a 5-year, 10-year vision. Professor Chandra is someone who's worked, he's a professor today, but he worked long, he worked with large companies, MNCs, Reliance, and others. So he said something. So I was giving him a presentation. What should we look from a 5-year perspective? Then he looked at me and he told me one thing. Do you know, Sanjeev, that 150 years back there was no office, and he says in 50 years there'll be no office. So I said, God, I would be retired and I don't have to worry. That was my first reaction, right? But it made me think with what he said, right? He made me really think. Why do we need an office, right? And I think that's a fundamental question all associates and employees are asking today. I work from home, I've delivered, but you are calling me back, right? So I really don't know where it is. Right? I mean, companies have moved from 1 day back to 2 days, 3 days. There are companies which are 4 and there are companies which are 5. My take is that work from home is not going away. Now, every company, depending on the business that it has, will draw its
Correct.
what works for
True.
it, right? So there is no one fixed solution for anyone. It will be industry driven, and within the industry, companies driven. I think that, in my view, would what is the future for work from home, and I think that's what will drive.
Right. I completely agree. Yeah, one size doesn't fit all. Like I said, policies are different, companies are different, sizes are different, and yeah. So just turning around and going back to the designers. So what is the trend that you're seeing, Sabina? I'll start with you on this. What's the trend you're seeing with your customers, with your clients? What are their requests?
So I totally agree with Sanjeev. I think it's so based on the nature of work. What are they doing? Yeah. So the R&D industry, obviously, they're coming back. You see a different type of industry, they don't need to come back. But I think the office at any given point, depending on the percentages, it's value to bring people together for innovation and to have a sense of belonging and to feel that you belong somewhere is always going to remain. And obviously these percentages of how much people come back will depend from industry to industry.
Thanks, Sabina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Sanjeev.
one is on the belonging, and second is what we have seen is the COVID bit when people working from home, returning back has become a challenge from a women perspective. So a lot of companies where people are pressing the pedal, you're seeing women dropping off from the workforce. That's a very critical factor in a lot of companies thinking that we don't want to press the pedal and like ask people to come, and you find a large drop of women, women workforce. I think that's a yeah, and you've been reading things in the paper. I think if you talk around, you will find that is a factor in a lot of places.
So switching gears a little bit, I'll come to Livingston because he's been doing a few great projects and winning awards, right? So we'll get him there. And so Livingston, when we look at office spaces, right, with the hybrid and what we have done over the course of the last 2 years, 3 years, have you seen people really redesigning their offices to accommodate hybrid, or how are they moving into the future? And some insights into those
Yeah,
angles.
definitely. Because if you look at the policies what HR has made, everything across, I think like everybody's debating, it's going to be hybrid, right? Work from home is going to be there, and because people have realized, even during the pandemic, they were able to work successfully at home. They've had good ratio about how. So the office's purpose have completely changed now. So the gone are the days where the office meant to be like just for a working purpose. Today it's more about if even recently Microsoft has given a study why people needs to come back to work. So they mentioned like it's more on team bonding and collaboration. That's a key, and then meeting with clients and all that. So they gave a very strong thing that these are the necessity. So the entire design for offices has completely changed. So whatever clients we've been doing recently, also, the offices are meant majorly for there'll be we have given a variety of workstation because that's something most of the clients are expecting because they don't want to have like one focus workstation kind of thing. They wanted to have today a lot of I think like AFC, a lot of good companies have come up and created a lot of ergonomic furniture, even for the collaboration furniture. They are, because earlier collaboration furniture, they will be, you'll be able to sit like 2 hours maximum. Today, all the collaboration furniture you need, use up to 8 hours also. So you get a lot of variety. You don't need to sit only on the focus workstation. You will have collaboration spaces. You will have different configuration of workstation altogether. So that's the base core, and technology has done a huge amount of change also in the way we work. So again, because now because earlier days when we design an office, it's more for the organization, like for X company, these are the branding, it's for the company. But today, if you look, it's more employee centric. The you know and for this, technology has adopted given a lot of keys also. So how do we do human centric way of designing? Like there is softwares, there is tools to read how how the real estate completely work. Each, if you're looking at if it's a IT, or if it's like a production company, whatever company, the tools are, there are a number of tools like density, bioform, a lot of softwares are there to understand how the real estate work, how in an office also people, how they move, where they use, are they using more collaborative spaces, are they using more focus workspaces, which department, because that's why workplace strategy plays a huge role today in designing, to understand how each of the, it might be one company, but there might be 8 or 9 groups which where they will work completely different. So there's a lot of thought process towards it, and definitely, so these days it's not just we take a requirement and work. Rather, we deep dive into it. When we did for Sanjeev sir also, like, we had a workplace strategy team completely working on each of the group. We had each champion to understand how they work and all that. So I really, there's a lot of changes in the way we design these
So,
days.
so I understand that for new projects, right? My bifurcation was in terms of existing offices. Have you done a lot of rework
Yeah.
in redesigning the spaces?
Yes.
Right, you have done that as
We
well.
have done that a lot
Okay.
as well.
That is
Yes.
what I was kind of coming to, because now I'll come to Payal to just understand the topic itself. Right, we are talking of work culture and design. So how do these two marry and go hand in hand when you are doing your designing for your clients?
So
What is something that you see new and innovative in the market today?
So I think culture is a very, very big word. I don't think as an individual, we'll be able to ever be able to understand a company's culture, because a culture is very elusive. It's not a foosball table. It's not biryani on Friday, but it's attitudes and behaviors and how leaders talk to each other. And every company curates a different culture, and that's why employees come and join certain companies. Now we are always on the outside. We talk to real estate teams, we try to understand culture, and till some time when we had the traditional office, and I'm going to talk about
Can I
the
interrupt for a minute, Pyle? Because as I understand, I mean, I don't know, different firms work differently, but when you're designing an office, I have known cases where architects or designers have spoken to different people in the organization, just not
no,
facilities or
so
real
I
estate
was just
work.
coming to that.
Yeah.
We do visioning workshops, workplace strategy. Without workplace strategy, you can't start designing, and that is when you try to understand and deep dive into culture. But pre-pandemic, we were looking at culture from a spatial perspective. This company's culture is very progressive. They want a lot of collaboration, so we'll design spaces like that. With hybrid, how do you catch that elusive culture? Because you have a distributed workforce. So then companies manage their culture during the pandemic through Teams, Slacks. You could bond over it, which is why that whole meta office is coming by. Can I have a virtual reception in the morning? Can I log in at 9 a.m.? So the remote worker is also seeing a virtual receptionist saying, hello, you walked into office. So it's become, culture is a very, very big word. And I think today, just picking up from what Livy was saying, workplace strategy and culture, that is where we'll have to try to marry that. Uh, Work with every company and their HR teams to understand their hybrid. Hybrid is also hybrid. Somebody is asking for fully remote and fully at office. Someone saying hybrid flexible, come when you want. Someone saying hybrid scheduled, come 3 days. And personally, when I think of If I was an employee of a company who was told to come to office for 3 days, I would say, why should I even come for those 3 days? Which is why the purpose of the office has changed. If I come to office, I'm not coming to do my focused or heads down work. I'm coming to do everything else. And therefore, the office changes, and therefore, we as designers will be able to help you, companies, build that culture back again.
Asha, your take on that? I mean, not on what Payal said, but on the question itself.
I think I had a very different thought process. Shashi spoke about what's the future and the whole factor of what's going to be sustainable and what's going to remain. The question I have for Sanjeev and yourself as well, what's in the long run good for a human being? Because are we retaining the human factor in the whole thing? Because if you consider us Asians, Indians, we've always lived amongst people, right? We've worked best amongst people. Let's take children. They've been innovative amongst themselves, and that's how ideas are produced. And all of us and human beings are normal. Well, there's a lot of things that have changed post COVID. People like to move into, or we offer people these kind of flex environments because there's a lot of competition as well. If you do not, then somebody else does, and that's how they're taken away. But I think in the long run, what is it that we want? I know as architects and designers, we want more work. We have to sustain. We expect companies like yours to expand. And we are in around as well. But what is it in the long run that you think, because you need to take a firm step on that, right? You need to say, I do not mind losing 10% of my workforce, but I think it's important for employees to stick by a certain regime. I'm not saying it means work 5 days a week, but what is it that we want to bring about? Do we want to make, again, robots out of ourselves, wherein everything you're reminded, everything is a call, everything is glass. There's no more human connect, right? So we're losing that evocative part of ourselves.
I'll just add on to one thing that you said. It's very, very beautiful. And I think before the pandemic, I used to speak about serendipitous encounters.
Yeah.
I don't think I understood this word very well, but I knew what it meant then. I think it has changed now. When you meet someone in office and you didn't know you were going to meet them, it's a visual cue. You just cross someone,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, you know what, because of looking at that person, you're like, I was supposed to send your team member an email 2 days back because you've seen that person. It's given you a visual cue. So what Asha is saying is, how do we get that back?
I don't know whether people want that back. And this is my personal opinion, nothing to the organization I represent. Uh, People, earlier they said build loyalty. I don't think it's gone, right? A lot of people want to be a gig worker. You got some work, I'll come, I'll deliver it for you for the next 10 days, then I'm on my own. A lot of people have gone back. We see the missing touch. A lot of people have gone back, they've gone back to their families, right? So I may miss a colleague, but then if I leave a company, I don't know him next day, right? So the loyalties are limited there. I think a lot of people who've gone back have got suddenly realized there are roots which didn't exist earlier, and are extremely comfortable in that, right? So I think that's one part. The second part is, what does an organization want for it to grow? If it feels it's critical for its business to have people in, it will demand that, right? So it's as simple. Your business will drive that. If you feel, I mean, few years back, I'll take 30 seconds more. One of the pioneers of people work from home, that company without taking name, you'll understand. 2018 said nobody will work from home. Everybody need to come back because they thought that's the only way to do work, right? So companies will drive what they want, and that will be driven by two factors: what works for them from the business, and second is how to attract talent. And I think companies will try and get a, a right mix of both.
Yeah, I think that's important, but a small difference here. For example, like fast fashion and sustainable fashion. There is somebody who's taking all the pains of doing something sustainable, derives a certain fashion statement where you're paying an X amount of money, and there's something that keeps coming every other day, which is trendy for us to wear, costs less, but what is healthy, right? So I'm coming back to that point. I know this is kind of the way forward. Everything is going in that direction, which looks like we're all going to be hybrid, or like Payal said, figure out what is the right solution. But the question I really have is that what we want? I know people are connected, people are isolated in their own sense, but majority of the population, I think, are becoming non-socialized themselves. You do have other issues which are popping up, and I think as responsible designers and as clients who are some of the major decision makers, what should we drive going forward? Is this the trend that we are seeing? Or because he's doing it, she's doing it, my friends have an option of working from home, I better get one. So that's catching up. But I think, is that what we want?
Hybrid will stay. Hybrid. Yeah. Yes. Like, say from the occupier perspective, right? So hybrid will stay. The definition of hybrid may differ from company to company, and again within the company, department to department, right? So not necessarily that every department will be following all 5 days or 1 day or completely work from home. So it is all dynamics within that small department and to the overall the company. But as of say, what looks like, see, the office space is meant for collaboration. People want to get connected. Once they connect, the work becomes very easy. So what happens in case of virtual meeting? If I need to connect with Sanjeev, I need to probably look for a slot when his slot will be free. But when we both are in office, we don't need a slot. Probably I don't need half an hour. I need 1 minute of his.
Maybe a 1 minute,
Right.
yeah, kind of
So
visit.
those are the advantages. So yeah, as a company overall, company need to figure it out. See, basically, say company is a term, but as a leader, we all need to figure it out. What is the right solve? What is working for our team? And similarly, every leader is must be thinking some for somebody some solution will work. They need to identify. But as a overall larger picture, hybrid will stay.
So I know during this whole phase at MathWorks, what we did was we didn't redesign anything. We just used the office as it was because it was a brand new office which we built, but we couldn't move because of pandemic. So, so I didn't give business to anybody. Right? Sorry for all the designers to redesign. But maybe soon I may be able to give some business. So read between the lines. Don't quote it in the market. But that's what we plan to do. And as we
That's a
see,
very sustainable approach, right? Everybody's got so much footprint. People are not coming back. So it's an opportunity to redesign and see, at least test pilot a small space.
yeah, yeah, the approaches we took were different. We'll talk outside of this panel on that. But the other thing that you see, one fact that I want to kind of mention here is that during the pandemic, the first person who stood up to the occasion was the facility management people, right? You were there each and every day in spite of whatever happened, during the pandemic. But today I see a completely, how do I put it, um, thankless kind of a scenario in the market where I see a lot of facility people and real estate people out there lost jobs as soon as offices started functioning. And that's a sad state of affairs. So that's just a trivia that I'm just sharing as we speak. But coming to the most loosely used term in today's terminology in today's world is wellness, right? It is used with good intention, but some people really don't understand what they mean when they talk wellness, or they may have a really well informed meaning of that wellness. So how do you all look at wellness as designers? And what is the requirement that's coming up from the market in terms of wellness, and do people really mean wellness, Sabina?
It's an interesting question, but I think I would say looking at the air quality, yeah, I would say that looking at those parameters, looking at what people are doing in the cafeteria space, what is the kind of food that they are offering to spend, the hydroponics, how are you looking at your water points, how are you looking at the facilities for exercise, how do you create a design in which you you kind of increase the people movement amongst the different types of spaces, inclusion of biophilia, uh, but looking at it from a different perspective, as you were talking about, it's kind of sad to see this city with great climate, and we are all in glass boxes. If we didn't have that, I think we would promote so much more wellness where we just have fresh air. So some very simple things, but somehow we are creating a complicated environment and then trying to solve it.
True. I'm just looking at the time. I think we are kind of a bit over. But yeah, coming back to the poll questionnaire that we had. So that's the reason I said in the beginning, saying we won't have one kind of a response from this panel. But at least I can confirm that the first section where I answered the questions on occupier section, most of what is in the poll is what I have. So that could give some kind of an indicator.